Right now, as you're watching this, there is someone out there who makes the exact same salary as you, maybe even less. And they are on track to become a millionaire within the next 10 to 15 years. And no, they didn't inherit money. They don't have a trust fund. They're not running some crypto Ponzi scheme on the side. They're doing something painfully simple that most people refuse to do. Not because it is hard, but because it is boring. And here is the part that should genuinely bother you. The difference between you and that person is not income. It is not intelligence. It is not even luck. It is a sequence of financial decisions, exposed, proven, repeatable, that almost nobody talks about because there is no money in telling you the boring truth. Every single day, I watch financial content on this platform that promises you passive income or side hustle your way to 7 figures. And look, I'm not here to trash anyone's channel, but I am here to tell you that the vast majority of people who actually cross the $1 million net worth threshold in this country didn't do it with a dropshipping store or a meme stock. They did it with a strategy so unsexy that most YouTubers won't even make a video about it because it won't get clicks. Well, today, I'm making that video. We're going to walk through, step by step, dollar by dollar, how a regular person earning a median income in the United States can realistically go from a net worth of 0 to a net worth of $1 million. No fluff, no hype, just the math, the mechanics, and the mindset. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you the one calculation that changes how most people think about retirement permanently. Before we build anything, we need to demolish a few illusions first. According to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances, the most comprehensive wealth data we have in the United States, the median net worth of an American family is roughly $192,900 as of the most recent data cycle. Now, that number sounds okay until you realize it is heavily skewed by home equity. Strip out the house, and for a huge portion of American households, liquid investable net worth is shockingly low. We're talking 5 figures, sometimes 4. And here is where it gets uncomfortable. The Employee Benefit Research Institute reported that roughly 28% of American workers have less than $1,000 saved for retirement. Not $1,000 a month, not $1,000 a paycheck, $1,000 total. That is it. That is the whole retirement plan. So when I say 0 to $1 million, I'm not being dramatic. For tens of millions of people in this country, 0, or close to it, is the actual starting point. Now, there is a narrative out there that says the reason people can't build wealth is because wages are too low, housing costs are too high, and the whole system is rigged. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that income inequality isn't real, or that housing affordability isn't a genuine crisis in dozens of American cities. It absolutely is. If you are in San Francisco or New York paying $2,800 a month for a 1-bedroom, the math hits different. I get it. But here is what the data also shows. And this is the part that people don't want to hear. Among households earning between $75,000 and $150,000 a year, which is solidly middle class, roughly 25 to 30% of American households, the exposed savings rate is still painfully low. Bureau of Economic Analysis data tells us the U.S. personal savings rate has been hovering around 3.5 to 4.5% over the past year. That is nowhere near enough to build meaningful wealth over a working lifetime. Nowhere near. And the reason isn't always that people can't save for a meaningful percentage of that income bracket. It is that they don't. Because lifestyle inflation eats every single raise, every single bonus, every single tax refund before it ever sees the inside of a brokerage account. So step 1 on this path, and I know this isn't what you clicked for, but it is the foundation everything else is built on, is an honest, uncomfortable audit of where your money is actually going. Not where you think it is going, where it is actually going. All right, let's talk about the engine, because no matter how good your investment strategy is, no matter how optimized your tax plan is, none of it works without fuel. And the fuel is income. Now, I need to be precise here, because there are 2 schools of thought in personal finance, and they're both partially right. School 1 says, cut your expenses, live below your means, save aggressively. That is the classic Dave Ramsey, rice and beans philosophy. And it works, to a point. You need to eat, you need shelter. You probably need a car in most of America. You need health insurance. Once you've optimized those essentials, the amount you can squeeze out of a $50K salary through pure frugality is maybe $500 to $800 a month. That is real money that matters. But it is not going to get you to $1 million in 15 years by itself. School 2 says, focus on increasing income. Earn more. Invest the difference. And this is where the math gets genuinely interesting. The Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows that median weekly earnings for full-time workers in the U.S. were approximately $1,165 as of late 2024. That translates to roughly $60,580 annually. If you look at earnings by education level and by age, what you see is a curve. Workers between 25 and 34 earn significantly less than workers between 45 and 54. There is a natural income ramp over a career, and the slope of that ramp depends heavily on the decisions you make in your 20s and 30s. I'm talking about things like which industry you're in, whether you're actively managing your career or just passively collecting paychecks, whether you're developing marketable skills that increase your leverage in salary negotiations, and whether you're willing to make strategic moves, changing companies, changing cities, changing roles to capture that next income jump. The data on this is honestly striking. Research consistently shows that employees who change jobs every 2 to 3 years tend to have significantly higher lifetime earnings than those who stay at the same company for decades. The reason is simple. Internal raises in most companies average 3 to 4% annually, barely keeping pace with inflation. External offers, especially in competitive industries, frequently come with 15 to 25% salary bumps. So let me put a real number on this. Say you start at $55,000 at age 25. If you get 3% annual raises for 20 years, you end up at about $99,000 by age 45. Not bad. But if you make 3 strategic job changes in that same window, capturing 20% bumps at years 28, 33, and 38, and still get 3% annual raises in between, you end up north of $140,000 by age 45. That is a $40,000 annual income difference. And the compounding effect of investing that extra $40K a year is enormous. We're going to put the exact numbers on that in a minute. The point is this: the single most impactful financial decision most people will make isn't which index fund to buy. It is how aggressively they manage the income side of the equation. Okay, so you've got income coming in. Now we need to build the system that actually captures wealth instead of letting it evaporate into lifestyle inflation. And I want to be very specific here, because vague advice like just save more is useless. What actually works is building what I call a savings architecture, a set of automated systems that move money into wealth-building vehicles before you ever see it in your checking account. The behavioral finance research on this is overwhelming. When saving is a manual decision you have to make every month, most people fail. When it is automatic, most people succeed. That is not opinion. That is decades of data from 401k auto enrollment studies. So here is the architecture, layer by layer. Layer 1, the employer sponsored retirement account. If you have access to a 401k or 403b, this is the single most powerful wealth building tool available to a regular W-2 employee, and it is not close. In 2025, the contribution limit is $23,500 if you are under 50 and $31,000 if you are 50 or older, with the catch-up provision. And starting in 2025 under the Secure 2.0 Act provisions, there's actually a new enhanced catch up for people aged 60 to 63, pushing the limit even higher, up to $34,750 for that specific age window. These are significant numbers, but here is the part that makes my head spin every time I see the data. Vanguard, How America Saves report shows that the average 401k contribution rate is still hovering around 7 to 8% of salary, and the median 401k balance for Americans in their 60s, people on the doorstep of retirement, is roughly $87,000. That is not a typo, $87,000. For people who need that money to last potentially 25 to 30 years. Now, the math on what happens if you actually max out a 401k is legitimately powerful. Let S run it. $23,500 a year. Invested in a broad market index fund earning a long-term average of roughly 7% after inflation, which is consistent with the S&P 500's historical real return compounded over 20 years. That gives you approximately $1.02 million from one account. That is it. That is the million. Right there. 20 years of maxing out a 401k at historical average returns gets you to 7 figures. Now I know what you are thinking. I can afford to save $23,500 a year. And for some of you, that is genuinely true right now. But for many of you earning $75K, $90K, $120K, you just haven't restructured your spending to make it possible. And the reason you haven't is because no one has shown you what that money becomes in 20 years. Well, now you've seen it. Layer 2, the Roth IRA. The 2025 contribution limit is $7,000 or $8,000 if you are 50 or older. Income limits apply. For single filers, the ability to contribute directly to a Roth IRA starts phasing out at $150,000 of modified adjusted gross income in 2025 and is completely eliminated at $165,000. For married filing jointly, the phase-out range is $236,000 to $246,000. If you're above those limits, the backdoor Roth conversion strategy still exists, and despite years of congressional talk about closing it, it remains legal and available as of today. The mechanics are straightforward. Contribute to a traditional IRA with after-tax dollars, then convert to a Roth. Consult a CPA on the pro rata rule if you have existing pre-tax IRA balances, because that is where people get tripped up. The Roth is powerful because of one simple feature. Qualified withdrawals in retirement are completely tax-free. No federal income tax, no state income tax in most states. If tax rates are higher when you retire than they are today, and given the trajectory of federal deficits and the scheduled expiration of certain tax cuts and Jobs Act provisions, having a bucket of tax-free money in retirement is a significant strategic advantage. Layer 3, the taxable brokerage account. Once you've maxed your tax-advantaged accounts, the overflow goes here. This is your flexibility bucket. No contribution limits, no withdrawal penalties, no age restrictions. The trade-off is that you'll pay capital gains taxes on appreciated assets when you sell. But if you're buying and holding broad market index funds long-term, you are looking at long-term capital gains rates of 0%, 15%, or 20%, depending on your income, which, for most people, is significantly lower than ordinary income tax rates. And here is a strategy that doesn't get enough attention: tax loss harvesting in this account. When positions are down, you sell, capture the loss on paper, and immediately buy a similar, but not substantially identical, fund. That loss offsets gains elsewhere, reducing your tax bill. Over a multi-decade investing horizon, disciplined tax loss harvesting can add meaningful basis points to your after-tax return. The point of this 3-layer architecture is diversification, not just of assets, but of tax treatment. Pre-tax money in the 401k tax, free money in the Roth, flexible after tax money in the brokerage account. When you get to retirement, you're pulling from 3 different buckets, and you can optimize your taxable income year by year. That is how smart people minimize their lifetime tax burden. Now let's talk about what you actually do with the money once it is in those accounts. And I want to be really direct with you here, because this is where the financial content ecosystem does people the most damage. There are thousands of videos on YouTube right now telling you to buy individual stocks, options, leveraged ETFs, crypto, real estate syndications, and a dozen other things that sound sophisticated and exciting. And some of those strategies can work. I'm not going to deny that. But the data, the actual peer-reviewed, decades-long data, says that for the vast majority of individual investors, the optimal strategy is breathtakingly simple. Buy a low-cost, broadly diversified index fund. Hold it. Keep buying more of it. Don't stop. This isn't contrarian anymore. It is consensus among virtually every serious financial economist alive. The SPIVA scorecard, which is published annually by StenPip Dow Jones Indices, consistently shows that over 15-year periods, somewhere between 85 and 92% of actively managed large cap funds underperform the S&P 500 index. Let me say that again. The vast majority of professional fund managers, with teams of analysts and billions in resources, fail to beat an index you can buy for an expense ratio of 0.03%. So what does this look like in practice? For most people, it means something like a total US stock market index fund, something tracking the CRSP US Total Market Index, or a similar benchmark, as the core of your portfolio. You can complement that with an international index fund for geographic diversification and a bond index fund as you get closer to retirement. That is the three-fund portfolio. It has been the backbone of sensible investing advice for decades because it works. Now let me address the elephant in the room: market volatility. Because the moment I say, just invest in index funds, someone in the comments is going to say, what about 2022? Or what about 2020? Or what about 2008? And they're right to bring it up, because those drawdowns were real. The S&P 500 dropped roughly 34% in about 5 weeks during the COVID crash in early 2020. It dropped almost 50% during the financial crisis from 2007 to 2009. These are not small numbers. Watching your portfolio lose a third or half of its value is psychologically brutal. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But here is what the data also shows. Every single one of those drawdowns was temporary. Every single one. The S&P 500 recovered from the COVID crash in about 5 months. It recovered from the 2008 financial crisis within about 4 years. It recovered from the .com bust. It recovered from Black Monday in '87. It recovered from the stagflation of the '70s. Every single time. And the people who lost money permanently in those crashes weren't the people who held. They were the people who sold. That is the only way you turn a temporary paper loss into a permanent, real loss. By panicking, selling at the bottom, and sitting in cash while the recovery happens without you. The behavioral data on this is painful to look at. Dalbar's quantitative analysis of investor behavior report has consistently shown that the average equity fund investor significantly underperforms the actual funds they're invested in. Not because the funds are bad, but because the investors buy high and sell low. They chase performance. They panic in downturns. They try to time the market. And every one of those behaviors destroys returns. So when I talk about the 0 to a million path, a huge piece of it is simply staying invested. Automating your contributions, not looking at your portfolio every day, and having the emotional discipline to continue buying when the market is down 20, 30, even 40%. Because those are the moments when your dollars are buying the most shares. And those shares will generate the most wealth over the next decade. I also want to touch on something that has been making the rounds in the financial media over the past year or so. The conversation around whether US stocks are overvalued and whether investors should be more heavily allocated to international equities. The Shiller-Cape ratio for the S&P 500 has been elevated by historical standards. And some commentators have pointed to this as a reason to expect lower forward returns from US equities over the next decade. And they might be right. Valuations do matter over long time horizons. But here is my take. If you are on a 20-plus year accumulation timeline, the exact starting valuation matters far less than your savings rate and your consistency. A diversified portfolio with both domestic and international exposure hedges you against any single market's underperformance, while still capturing the global equity premium that has been the primary driver of long-term wealth creation for over a century. Let's put concrete numbers on this, because I think when most people see the actual math, something clicks. I'm going to run 3 scenarios. Same investment, return assumption. 7% real after inflation, which is the long. Run historical average for a diversified equity portfolio. Different savings rates. Scenario 1, you save $500 a month. That is $6,000 a year at 7% real return. After 20 years, you have approximately $263,000. After 25 years, about $405,000. After 30 years, roughly $607,000. You get to $1 million around year 34. Not bad. You're a millionaire in your late 50s or early 60s if you start in your mid-20s. But it is a long road. Scenario 2. You save $1,500 a month. That is $18,000 a year. After 20 years, you have approximately $789,000. After 22 years, you cross $1 million. That is age 47. If you start at 25, now we re-talking. Scenario 3, you save $2,500 a month. That is $30,000 a year. Achievable if you are a dual income household, earning a combined $150K and keeping your lifestyle in check. After 20 years, you have approximately $1.31 million. You cross $1 million around year 17 or 18. That is your early 40s. Now look at the difference between those scenarios. The gap between scenario 1 and scenario 3 isn't just about having more money. It is about time. It is about hitting financial independence in your early 40s versus your late 50s. That is 15 years of your life. 15 years of having the option to work or not work. 15 years of freedom. And this is the compounding effect people underestimate. It is not linear. The first $100,000 is the hardest and takes the longest because your contributions are doing most of the heavy lifting, while the compounding hasn't really kicked in yet. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's late partner at Berkshire Hathaway, famously said that the first $100,000 is the hardest. After that, the money starts making money in a way that feels genuinely different. Let me show you why. Say you invested $100,000 and it earns 7% this year. That is $7,000 in returns. Nice, but not life-changing. Now say you invested $500,000 and it earns 7%. That is $35,000. More than many people save in an entire year, generated passively while you sleep. At $1 million, 7% is $70,000. A full salary earned by the money itself. The asset is doing the working now, not you. That is the crossover point. That is the moment when your investment returns exceed your annual expenses. And that, fundamentally, is what financial independence means. It is not about having $1 million for the sake of having $1 million. It is about reaching the point where you no longer need to exchange your time for money to survive. All right, so we've covered the offense: earn more, save aggressively, invest consistently, let compounding do its thing. Now let's talk about the defense, because I have seen more wealth-building journeys derailed by avoidable mistakes than by bad markets. Mistake number 1, high-interest consumer debt. If you are carrying a balance on a credit card at 22, 24, 27% APR, and average credit card interest rates were hovering above 20% through most of 2024, according to Federal Reserve data, that is a financial emergency. There is no investment strategy on earth that reliably returns 25% annually. So every dollar sitting on a credit card balance is costing you more than any reasonable investment can earn. Before you invest aggressively, eliminate high-interest consumer debt. Period. The 401k match is the one exception. Get the full employer match first, because that is an instant 50 to 100% return on your contribution, depending on your employer's match formula. But after that, high interest debt goes to zero before you start piling into the brokerage account. Mistake number 2, buying too much house. The general guideline is that your total housing cost, mortgage payment, property tax, insurance, maintenance, should not exceed 28% of your gross income. But what I see constantly, especially in today's market, where home prices have appreciated dramatically in many metros over the past 4 years, is people stretching to 35, 40, even 45% of their gross income on housing. That leaves nothing for investing. Your house is not an investment strategy. It is a consumption item that may appreciate. There is a huge difference. Mistake number 3, lifestyle creep without intention. You get a $10,000 raise. Your rent goes up by $200 a month because you move to a nicer apartment. Your car payment goes up by $150 because you upgrade. Your dining budget creeps up by $200. Your subscriptions expand by $75. Just like that, $625 a month, $7,500 a year is gone. The raise evaporated. And this happens again and again, every year, every raise, every bonus, until you are earning $120,000 and still living paycheck to paycheck, genuinely confused about where the money goes. The antidote is what some people call paying yourself first and what I call automating the gap. When your income goes up before you adjust anything else, increase your automatic investment contribution. If you get a $10,000 raise, bump your 401k contribution by $500 a month before you even update your budget. You'll never miss money you never saw. Mistake number 4, and this is the one that I think causes the most damage, quietly, is lack of adequate insurance. I know that sounds boring compared to talking about investment returns, but one uninsured medical event, one disability, one lawsuit, can wipe out years or decades of wealth accumulation overnight. Health insurance, disability insurance, if your employer doesn't provide it, adequate auto and home or renter's insurance, and an umbrella liability policy once your net worth starts climbing. These are not optional. They are the walls that protect everything you've built. All right, I told you at the beginning, I'd show you one calculation that changes how most people think about retirement. Here it is. It is called the 4% rule, and it comes from a 1998 study by 3 finance professors at Trinity University, often called the Trinity Study. The concept is straightforward. If you withdraw 4% of your portfolio in year 1 of retirement, the concept is straightforward. If you withdraw 4% of your portfolio in year 1 of retirement and adjust that withdrawal for inflation each subsequent year, a diversified portfolio of stocks and bonds has historically survived for at least 30 years in the vast majority of rolling historical periods tested. What this means in practical terms is this. Take your annual expenses, the amount of money you need to live comfortably per year, and multiply by 25. That is your financial independence number. If you spend $40,000 a year, your number is $1 million. If you spend $60,000 a year, your number is $1.5 million. If you spend $80,000 a year, your number is $2 million. Now, there are legitimate criticisms of the 4% rule. Some researchers argue it is too aggressive given current bond yields and elevated equity valuations. Others point out that real human spending in retirement isn't a flat inflation, adjusted line. It tends to decrease in mid-retirement and spike again in late retirement due to healthcare costs. And if you are retiring at 42 instead of 65, you need your money to last 45 or 50 years, not 30, which means you might want to use a more conservative 3.5% or even 3.25% withdrawal rate. All of those are valid nuances, but the core insight of the calculation remains powerful. There is a specific calculable number at which your invested assets can sustain your lifestyle indefinitely. And once you know that number, the entire project of wealth building becomes concrete. It is no longer save as much as you can and hope for the best. It is I need to reach some X, and at my current savings rate, I'll get there in Y years. That transforms retirement from an abstract future event into a project with a measurable timeline. And for a lot of people watching this, especially those in their 20s or 30s, that number is closer than you think. Because you've got the most valuable asset in all of investing: time. The path from 0 to $1 million isn't complicated. It is 5 things, executed consistently over a long enough period. 1. Aggressively manage the income side of the equation. Your career is your biggest financial asset. Treat it like one. 2. Build an automated savings architecture that captures at least 20 to 25% of your gross income before you have a chance to spend it. 3. Invest in low-cost, diversified index funds and don't touch them. 4. Protect what you build with proper insurance and zero high-interest consumer debt. 5. Let compounding time do the heavy lifting, and don't interrupt it with panic selling or market timing. None of this is secret, none of it is new. The math has been the same for 100 years. What is different now is that you have access to zero-commission brokerages, ultra, low-cost, index funds, employer retirement plans with matching contributions, and more free financial education than any generation in human history. The tools are better than they've ever been. The only remaining variable is execution. It is whether you actually open the account tonight, whether you actually increase your contribution rate this week, whether you actually sit down and look at where your money is going this month. $1 million is not a fantasy. It is an arithmetic outcome of consistent behavior applied over time. The question is not whether it is possible. The question is whether you'll do it. I'll see you in the next one.